In the dusty, sun-bleached town of Dry Gulch, where the wind carried the scent of sagebrush and broken dreams, a piece of string named Silas slithered along the cracked sidewalk. Silas wasn't your average twine. He had a certain coiled confidence, a tensile strength of spirit that set him apart from the ropes and cords of the world. Today, his fibers were parched, and his only thought was a cold, frothy beer to soothe his frayed soul. He nudged open the swinging doors of the Rusty Spur Saloon, the town's only watering hole. The air inside was thick with the smell of stale whiskey and sweat. Silas, with a determined wriggle, hoisted himself onto a bar stool, his hempen body scraping against the worn leather. The patrons, gruff cowhands and weathered prospectors, barely glanced his way. "Bartender," Silas called, his voice a soft rasp like a bow on a fiddle. "I'd like a beer." The bartender, a burly man named Hank, with a mustache that could sweep the floor, froze mid-pour. His eyes narrowed as he sized up the unusual customer. "Sorry, pal," he said, setting down a glass with a clink. "We don't serve strings here. House rules." Silas bristled, his fibers twitching. "House rules? What's that supposed to mean?" Hank leaned forward, his voice low. "Means this ain't a place for your kind. No offense, but strings cause trouble. Always getting tangled in things, tripping folks up. Take it outside." The saloon went quiet, all eyes on Silas. He felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken agreement that he didn't belong. With a defiant twist, he slid off the stool and slithered out into the blazing sun, the doors creaking shut behind him. But Silas wasn't one to unravel easily. He had an idea, a plan as bold as it was desperate. Out in the alley behind the saloon, Silas coiled himself into a tight spiral, his mind racing. The rejection stung, but he wasn't about to let some small-town barkeep dictate his fate. He needed a disguise, something to make him less string-like. The alley was littered with debris, a rusted spur, a broken bottle, a tumbleweed caught in a gust. Inspiration struck like a spark on dry grass. Silas began to work on himself. With a few deft twists, he tied his middle into a tight, intricate knot, the kind sailors might use to secure a ship in a storm. Then, using the jagged edge of the broken bottle, he frayed his ends until they splayed out like a wild mane. He looked at his reflection in a muddy puddle and barely recognized himself. Gone was the sleek, simple string. In his place was something chaotic, something that might just pass for not a string. Satisfied, Silas straightened up, or as much as a knotted, frayed string could, and slithered back toward the saloon. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of fire, and the air carried the promise of a cooler night. He pushed through the doors again, this time with a swagger in his slither. The Rusty Spur hadn't changed in the 10 minutes Silas had been gone, but the atmosphere felt different. Or maybe it was just him. He climbed back onto the same bar stool, ignoring the curious glances from the regulars. Hank was wiping down the bar, his back to Silas, but he turned at the sound of the stool creaking. "Bartender," Silas said, his voice steady, "I'd like a beer." Hank's eyes narrowed, his mustache twitching like a suspicious cat's whiskers. He leaned in close, studying Silas's knotted middle and frayed ends. The saloon was quiet again, the tension thick enough to choke on. Hank's gaze flicked from Silas's tangled form to his own memory of the string he'd just kicked out. "Hey," Hank said slowly, his voice a low growl, "ain't you that piece of string that was just in here?" Silas felt every fiber of his being tense. This was the moment. He could shrink back, admit defeat, and slink away into the desert night. Or he could lean into the absurdity of it all. He chose the latter, letting a sly grin spread across his non-existent face. "No, sir," he said, his voice smooth as a well-worn rope. "I'm afraid not."